What do you think led the United States to impose sanctions on RSF now after several years of this war?
Well, when you look at the record of the RSF and the atrocities that were happening on the ground, it necessitated this action to be taken. Increasingly, we've seen atrocities against civilians going up on a scale that's unprecedented, and that led to policy wonks across the world, activists and Sudanese citizens themselves asking for some form of accountability.
Brian, how effective would these sanctions be, and can they force Hemeti to stop the war?
Sanctions in and of themselves can not actually force any stoppage to any conflict. They have to be accompanied by other actions. Specifically, they have to be accompanied by a political strategy, a diplomatic and political strategy that would lead to the end of the conflict. And sanctions is just one of the items in the toolkit. If you impose sanctions, then you also have to be articulating a strategy of how to bring people to the negotiating table and then reach a political settlement. And I believe this is just one part of it. And those that have the United States is actually right now involved in a political strategy to address the conflict in Sudan. And I think as we go forward in the coming months, we will begin hopefully to see some negotiations picking up because of this.
Brian, some people may wonder why these sanctions were imposed on the RSF and not also on the Sudan's army led by Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. What are the possible answers here?
Well, this is not a question of who is more or less evil than the other in comparing the RSF and the Sudan armed forces. This is a question of who is actually committing the genocide, who is committing the mass atrocities right now. And the evidence suggests overwhelmingly that the RSF is at the forefront of these atrocities, and that's why it was sanctioned.
And how would you characterize this war in terms of how it has impacted civilians in Sudan, and even having a little hope about having some normalcy in the near future?
It's a good question. The war has been very devastating. Nearly 30% of Sudan's population has been displaced. The UNHCR says that at least 11 million people in the country have been displaced. Another 3 million have been forced to refuge in neighboring countries. The infrastructure in the country has been devastated and brought to the ground. And there's a famine looming in Sudan. So all of these factors indicate that this is really a very devastating consequence